think that's really our role, particularly with satire and as comedians, is to kind of call out those hypocrisies where you see them from the people who are in power. Right. I mean, the stuff we're seeing from news, people are always like, why are you always going after Newsom and not Trump? I'm like, Newsom affects me directly. I live in California. He affects people I know.
G.K. Chesterton.
Well, Kyle doesn't come very much, but
working on it.
But he talked in one of the recent essays we were reading. G.K. Chesterton.
Right.
Yep. He talked about how the things we consider reasonable and rational just means what the culture accepts right now.
Right.
They're tomorrow's revolutions. So he even used the example, this is 100 years ago, that, 2 plus, we take for granted that 2 + 2 = 4, but we'll be pulling out our swords and fighting for that truth tomorrow.
Yeah. Wow. Well, we might be, actually.
Yeah.
That's literally happening. That's literally happening.
Yeah, that's the insidiousness that I see. I mean, in some ways, not to get political, but in some ways, from my perspective of being in like the demilitarized zone, as you call it, which is hilarious, the wasteland of the center, the insidiousness that is coming from the left and this weird creeping authoritarianism that seems to be coming down and on the West kind of everywhere. And it's terrifying. It's much easier for me to fight that if I'm also not like constantly dealing with like but Trump is blah, blah, blah. So it does make it easier for me to focus all of my attention on that one insidiousness instead of having to focus on 2 creeping hypocrisies at the same time. It's like, okay, we've got this over here and that's not really even where I come from. So I think you have to you guys do a great job of kind of calling balls and strikes even within your own team or whatnot. And I think that's really our role, particularly with satire and as comedians, is to kind of call out those hypocrisies where you see them from the people who are in power. Right. I mean, the stuff we're seeing from news, people are always like, why are you always going after Newsom and not Trump? I'm like, Newsom affects me directly. Yeah. I live in California. He affects people I know. Trump is like, what is it? And he wants us to be more open. If anything.
Such a tyrant.
Yeah. So
dictator.
They get mad at me when I'm like, this guy is like, I feel like he wakes up and just is like, who am I going to mess with today? Yeah. Restaurateurs. Let's do this.
It's insane.
Yeah, it's great.
Can we go off on Newsom for a while?
Oh, I will happily. I mean, I will make it my mission to make sure that man never. When you look at some of the stuff have you guys seen the like unemployment scandal that's going on, where people came from other states and they are basically it's all this fraud, and now people who need unemployment can't get it because there's such a huge backlog because our system is from probably the 1970s, and it's so upsetting. The most upsetting thing is people are like, today there was an article, oh my gosh, in Virginia, 75% of the kids who are the most vulnerable are getting Fs. Oh, you don't say. Like everybody didn't call this. When I was growing up, my upbringing was a little chaotic, and I remember walking home and dreading. And, I love my parents and there's a lot of water under the bridge, but all is forgiven. They did the best they could. But when I was young, I would dread. I remember that walk down the driveway every single day, like vividly. I vividly remember being like, what am I going to come home to? And there are people who are like, oh, it's no big deal, blah, blah, blah. They don't understand there are tons of kids who are in that kind of circumstance. Yeah. Where their home life is like chaos and school is actually kind of a relief for them. And it's hard to focus when you have little siblings who are screaming behind you, and you have, I don't know. I mean, that's really why I fell off the rails of education. Was it's very hard to care about your grades when you have dysfunctional stuff going on at home.
Yeah.
And it's that kind of stuff where it's lip service to the vulnerable, and all of the vulnerable people are suffering. Small businesses are getting crushed. We're seeing all the kids slipping through the cracks who are in vulnerable communities. special needs kids aren't getting the care that they need and deserve. I worked in that, and I don't know how any of these parents are doing this without all of that help. There's all of it's like all my friends who are waitresses and waiters. How many people in LA, think of what an industry that is in this town.
Yeah.
It is like how many musicians and people in fashion and people in every single creative industry come here, and that's their job. And now they're probably all living at home, I would guess, or had to go home. What are they doing? It's a huge backbone of our entire creative economy. So how many creatives have we lost? How many? It's just like the domino effect. I'm in recovery, as I've mentioned. So many people, you can't have, like, this is what's crazy to me. You can have 1,000 people at a concert, but you can't have 10 people at an AA meeting or go to church. It's like, why are you taking people's coping mechanisms from them? Why are you taking things that I've seen so many people relapse in this time? Depression's increasing. I had Johan Hari on, he wrote Lost Connections, and he wrote another book about the war on drugs. But he writes a lot about depression and addiction. And he was saying these are two things that were already on the rise in America leading up to the lockdowns. And the lockdowns have exacerbated all of this. But we really need to look at what's going on, that this stuff was already on the rise. I mean, we had the most overdoses this year than ever by like the summer. I mean, it's, and then if you say this, you're like, oh, so you're a COVID truther, I guess. I guess you think this is a hoax. No, I'm not. You can hold both of these things, and you should be evaluating both of these things. A good leader would be looking at all of these things and not just saying, hey, we're going to lock everything down. Good luck. Here's your $1,200 for like how many months has it been?
Yeah.
I mean, people should, if you want to be out in the streets protesting, this is the stuff you should be protesting.
Yeah.
Because it's outrageous. But most of the people, it's outrageous. I think everyone's just like worn down.
Yeah. And if it wasn't political, I think there'd be a lot more protesting. People see it as I'm on this team, so I'm on wear my mask and obey.
Isn't it weird? You see someone's Twitter avatar, and if they're wearing a mask, you know
you
what
immediately
side
know.
Yeah. Isn't that weird?
Oh wow, it's like the pronouns in the bio.
It's like the pronouns, yeah.
Yeah.
Somebody, I think it was Sal the algorist, or he had it was from the Hunger Games, and he's like, when you see someone out in public without a mask, and it's like the Hunger Games sign, like
a salute.
Team member. Yeah, it was funny. It's again, for people talking about science, when let's just talk about the restaurants. The science is that there are very little outbreaks in restaurants. They've spent thousands of dollars to try and accommodate all of the whims of the overlords, just to make it so they could go outside.
They're building these outside arenas for people to eat in, these pop-ups or whatever, and then they're like, let's shut down.
Most of the outbreaks by the state's own records are at Subways, McDonald's, they're fast food places. They're not even at these.
A lot of traffic, people walking in and out.
It's so frustrating.
Yeah.
It's very, I could go off on Newsom. I just feel like, again, same thing with like the firefighting, when you really dig down into that and it's like, oh, this is all just climate. No, actually, locally, people have been begging you to deal with some of this forest management for years. And you just are ignoring them and not letting them do what needs to be done. And you also haven't dealt with freaking PG&E or whatever and all of their equipment that's horrible and starts entire towns on fire.
Are you okay? We need a break.
I'm going to start
I just wanted to say that he has stupid hair gel.
Well, he does.
Yeah,
that
true.
Too.
That was my main thing.
Yeah.
He's so schmarmy. Even when he was saying sorry about his French Laundry incident, he was smiling.
Yeah.
When you're smiling and apologizing, I know you're not apologizing.
We all need to do better. And he smiles. It's like,
it's crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, he is like an Adam Sandler movie villain. Like the name, the hair, everything about him, the grovelly voice. Yeah. It's just like can he not see that he's that character? I don't know.
I mean, I lean into joking because when I don't, I go into, revolution, Bridget.
Yeah.
Let's
do it. Let's go.
And I don't know how to start a revolution.
Oh, hello there. You must have just watched one of our videos. Thank you for doing that. I'm Ethan, and this is the Babylon Bee, obviously. And click like. Just want to remind you. Subscribe. Hit the little bell, whatever that thing does. Comment. We read them all. Check out more of our videos because we make them for people like you.